I'm here with Gene Hoglan of Dark Angel. They're currently on tour, traveling across North America, playing all sorts of cities near you. By the way, you can check out in the description of this video all the tour dates. And before we talk about the tour, let's talk about the new record. It's been a long time coming. At any point in time, did you think perhaps it wouldn't happen?
Oh yeah, from 1992 through 2013. Yeah, I never thought there would be another Dark Angel album, and that's when I was actually saying at the time, I don't really conceive of us doing Dark Angel again, just because I was so busy with everything else, and I'm always about taking that next step musically, doing the next thing, helping create that next genre kind of thing. And so for a long time there, I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about, stepping backwards a number of years, a couple of decades. That's not really in my in my makeup, I guess. And so actually one thing that helped quite a bit was doing Death to All, and having the fact that we had, it had been, when we did Death to All, it was 2012, so it was 18 something years, 17 years maybe since the last Death anything that I had done at the time. And that was kind of a magical project. So that kind of opened up my thoughts to the possibility of doing some more Dark Angel. And then a few things happened behind the scenes that made it very apparent that we had to do Dark Angel again in order to wrest control of the name, the band, the brand, the everything from an outside interloper, I guess. We had to just take it, so that's why, okay, we started doing shows. We started establishing the brand again. Jim Durkin and I bought the name, and we made sure that we have it and we own it and nobody else can try to do anything with it. So that's kind of where that sort of started. So for that period of time, 92, when we kind of just dissolved, we were always friends, we were always family, we were always pals, When I'd come through with any of my bands on tour, all the guys that come after the shows and all that kind of stuff. So from that time, from 92 through, 2012, 2013 kind of thing, it was, it was a little bit off my radar. So the fact that we started doing shows again, and we did, quite a number of shows over the next, just call it decade sort of thing. But it was, having Dark Angel being like, I don't know, a legacy act or a nostalgia act or something, doing material that's decades old, that doesn't appeal to me either. So it's like, if we want to remain a viable band, a real life project, let's put out a new record, we got the wits about us to do it, and we have the resources with which to pull it off, and when I can make the time for it, I will. And so I took a lot of time off from all the work that I do, all the playing that I do with so many projects and things. I dedicated a lot of blocks of time towards the new Dark Angel writing process and recording and all that sort of stuff. So that's where it became, it just built itself gradually and slowly, and now here we are in 2025. Got the brand new album, Extinction Level Event, is out now on Reversed Records. Check out reversedrecords.com to see how you can get it. And we have made the downloads of it real inexpensive. It's $7.99 to download this thing, and so that's where if you're a Dark Angel fan, you get to get the new record for $7.99. What's keeping you from buying that thing? Shoot,
Cheaper than Starbucks.
Absolutely. There you go. So cheaper than Starbucks, Dark Angel. There you go.
I know it's a selling point. It's a marketing line.
Right.
When it came time for you to put this new record together, you have a busy schedule. So you said you created blocks of time. Mm-hmm. Does that impact the creative process in terms of just looking at the record one block at a time or one portion at a time, and still try to create as much of a cohesive record as possible?
It was all cohesive, and it's easy to make things cohesive these days. It's not like here's the vibe from over here, and then here's the vibe from later, and here's another vibe. All the songs were put together in the first chunk of time, and then we got to recording in the second chunk of time, and then some things happened in the career that I had to go take care of. So when we got the next chunk of time to finish off the recording, and then we got another chunk of time to mix and master and all that sort of stuff, they all came pretty organically, but it did involve a lot of logistics to make it all happen. Like, we are a United States-based band, yet we recorded in Vancouver, Canada, at the Armory, where I've tracked out of 1,000,000 times, and a lot of projects from things I've worked on have come out of the Armory. And we worked with Mike Frazier as the mixer, and so I've worked with Mike before on a strapping album called The New Black. Did a great job on The New Black. He did a great job on Extinction Level Event. Our producer, Rob Shallcross, is Vancouver-based as well. He's BC-based, I guess, Victoria. And so us all working out of Vancouver, there are logistics involved. I no longer live in Vancouver, so it's not like I'm like, hey guys, everybody come crash at my place. You had to get hotels, you had to pay for recording time, plane flights, getting gear over the border, and getting gear all over that, for the studio, and all that sort of stuff. So a ton of logistics involved, but it was well worth it because we knew we were going to have a really kick-ass record on our hands. When we were working on the material beforehand, everybody had a real buzz about it, had a real excitement about it. Everybody within the band, within our tight little camp, everybody was really excited about moving forward. So that's the first thing that's most important, getting everybody's excitement. Yeah, I love the new stuff. Yeah, it's going to be great, And then capturing all that excitement on what, celluloid or something, whatever, cellulose, something like that. Capturing it on, just capturing it. That's the next phase of doing it. And once you capture it, you start to get to the point where it's becoming this living, breathing thing, and that's the exciting point of recording, when it goes from a spark of an idea to actual physical. I can listen to the songs now. Now they're now they're mixed. Get to listen to the mix. Now they're mastered. Get to listen to the master. Everything just improves upon everything, and so that's all been an exciting process to go through. And now the most exciting process of it all, the release, that's really fun. So there we are.
You mentioned that you didn't want to go out and play just the old tracks. You needed some new material in order to make things exciting for you. But when it came time to record and write the album, how much of a throwback feel do you wanted the record to be, and how much of a modern vibe do you also wanted the album to offer?
If there is any form of throwback feel, it's because this is Dark Angel, and I know how to write one style of music, aggressive thrash metal. That's, I write a bunch of other stuff too, but like my focus on guitar, especially when it comes to writing this record or whatever, my hand in whatever writing of this record I had, it was, that is just by the DNA of the band. We are a aggressive thrash metal band that started in the 80s and was able to live a couple of years into the 90s. So having that kind of throwback feel, I suppose, is intrinsic in our music. But I didn't, when people were finding out that Dark Angel's writing new material and we're working towards an album and things like that, that's where, people are asking me, well, is it going to sound like Darkness Ascends? Is it going to sound like Time Does Not Heal or any of the other records? And I'm like, well, Time Does Not Heal did not sound like Leave Scars, and Leave Scars did not sound like Darkness Ascends, and Darkness Ascends did not sound like We Have Arrived. So I'm not going to try to emulate riffs or anything that we've had before. However, the energy and the enthusiasm and the impact of all that material, I'm okay with tapping into the energy of it. But as for making it sound like, we gotta make it sound like Darkness Ascends Part 2, never gonna happen. We've never done that up to this point anyway. So the best way to go about it was like, I just kind of thought to myself like, hey, what if Dark Angel just kept writing albums, putting out records for the last 30 whatever years, and we just kept doing it? Where would we be at right now in the latest writing for the latest album? I'm like, well, Hoglan, you're a genius, you know. That's a gene, yes, that kind of thing. So that's where I was able to really be able to hone the focus in on. It's like, yeah, you don't have to sound like anybody but Dark Angel, and you don't have to sound exactly like Dark Angel because you are Dark Angel. That's Dark Angel of now, so you get to sound like Dark Angel now. And that was really easy to make the creative juices flow, and they came pretty intensely. And this album was written seriously over about a 4-month period, you know. 4 months for the music, get in the record, 4 months for the lyrics, you know, and vocals and all that sort of stuff. So those chunks of time were all, at least we were able to capture what you needed, you know. The first chunk needs the music, done. Second chunk needs a recording, done. Third chunk needs, okay, vocals, lyrics, you know, vocals and all that stuff. Maybe a little retracking of here and there, you know, easily done. And then the mixing, the mastering, all that kind of stuff, that's its own chunk. So each chunk was pretty compartmentalized, I suppose. And so that's what led to a pretty cohesive sounding record. Absolutely.
You guys, like you mentioned already a few times, you guys kind of, I want to use the word hibernation, because I don't think you guys have ever been gone. You've just kind of been in a slumber, and people were waiting for the awakening of Dark Angel. And I remember seeing when it got announced that there was a new album coming out, and then the announcement of this tour, the excitement of the fans, people who've been waiting for this for a very long time, was just, the internet went crazy. Were you expecting that kind of reaction from fans these days that still remember and still are hungry for some new Dark Angel?
No. No, you're cluing me into a lot of it now, because I don't pay attention to the internet at all, at all. Feel free, FBI, go through my stuff, because you're going to find like maybe 4 websites that I go to, you know. So I don't pay attention to what people are saying, because I appreciate it, definitely, the good and the bad. You know, I'm fine with both, man. Whatever, you know. Believe me, I got my own. You know, I give myself the good, I give myself the bad, you know, myself enough. And so the way I've always figured is just, if it's coming from my heart, that's the best approach for me and any kind of the music that I'm behind. And so, you know, if the fact that people have been excited and are looking forward to the album, the tour, the return, that's really exciting, that's really fun. And that's why, you know, we are doing this for the fans, you know. Like, I might not have my finger on the pulse of what every single fan wants or whatever, but I know what this fan wants, and I know how this fan knows how to do what it takes to keep everything like really pummeling for the listening audience, fans. So we are able to, you know, that's one reason why every night, doesn't matter if we're playing in front of, you know, 50,000 people at festivals or a handful of people in a packed, kick-ass, sweaty club. You're going to get the same intense Dark Angel show. Each night is going to get more and more intense, because we're constantly honing the show every night. We talk about the show every night, and like, hey man, let's try this tomorrow night, and let's not do this, and that this worked for us, and maybe this over here doesn't work, or let's try this other idea of something. You know, we're always trying to refine what we're doing and make a better impact, make it just even, you know, even harder on the audience. And so you'll see tonight, if you're at the show, it's an intense show, you know. And so, you know, we bring.
I'm definitely not missing it, for sure. Like, I've been looking forward to seeing you guys live for a very long time, and you're a busy dude. Like, you. Not only you're a busy dude, you're one of the best drummers in the genre in metal. You've played in some of the biggest bands. What keeps you motivated? I mean, I feel like you've done everything. Have you done everything?
No, not at all, you know. And I'm constantly learning about drums. I'm learning about the industry. Like, you know, what years? 2025. You know, I would say like 4 years ago, I was a drummer. You know, and now in the last 3-4 years, I've had to become a drummer, band leader of 2 bands, a businessman, you know, a financial planner, a financial money dude, and all these things where I said, man, I used to be a drummer, you know. But you have to wear many, many hats if you want to do this. And fortunately, I have the experience over the last 40 years, I've been on tour, essentially for 40 years pretty much. And utilizing that experience for myself. So it's like, hey, I've got a little leg up on some guys that are just starting out, like young 20-year-old dudes that don't have a clue what they're doing. I've got some experience where it's, just a lot of actual experiences that have helped define how this business model is shaped, lack of a better term, just the way to keep busy all the time, the way to keep, Death to All, Dark Angel on the road, be a part of Death Clock, be a part of Bear McCreary and any other things that are coming up. Having the time available for all that, you got to be able to manage your time well and manage your calendar really well. So my calendar is always booked upwards of a year in advance because it has to be. It's like you cannot come to me now. What month are we in? What month are we in?
Right now we're in September.
Okay, September. You can't come with like, hey, Gene, are you available in April or May? No. Are you available in June or July? No, it's on the calendar, So that's why you have to maintain, and you have to maintain like the machine as well. You gotta keep your cardio up. You gotta stay in shape and all that. Because I'm 58. I just turned 58. I guess if it's September, I turned 58. Under a month ago, and I'm playing better than I ever have, and I'm in better shape than I have been in a long time. Essentially over the years. So being able to do this in another 20 years, of course, that's the intent, that's the plan, So that is one of the things that you have to do. You have to maintain your body, because you can't let your chops slide. When I get off tour, and like many times, you literally have 2 days in between this tour and then this tour with somebody else, So that next day, after flying in from wherever, Australia, one night, I'm in the studio the next day setting up the gear and jamming, because I just don't take days off. I got to keep my chops. Usually I have to start rehearsing for that other project that's coming up. So, that's you stay busy, you stay motivated. It's this is fun. This life is relatively easy compared to somebody else who really does have a tough life. I'm fortunate. I'm blessed. So I try not to take advantage of that or take that for granted. I always want to acknowledge those who genuinely do work hard for a living. Physical, manual labor out there, grinding it out to feed their families. Those guys got the tough lives. I play music for a living, I play gigs for a living, and I anytime the schedule gets a little crazy, I've said this a million times, it's like, I got to remind myself, it's like, you asked for this, Gene, you asked for this, like when you were 13 years old and you're like, this is what I want to do with my life. I knew when I was 13, yes, I'm on the path to being a metal drummer, a rock drummer, touring the world, seeing the world, playing with bands, playing concerts all over the world. I was 13 when this idea was seriously cemented into my being, I guess. And that's all it is. It's like, you asked for this back then, you got what you wanted. Don't complain about it. And I don't. I feel very, very fortunate, very honored to be able to do this. And so that's where I'm the poster child for living one's dream. That's the motivation right there. This is all I ever wanted to do. Now that I'm doing it, am I going to complain about it or not be inspired to keep doing it? No, this is all I ever wanted to do. I'm living a dream life. So there's that right there is the impetus to keep it going. You're doing what you wanted to do your whole life. You've gotten to do your whole life the way you wanted. So, that is pretty inspirational for me anyway. I get to get inspired by that. So that's how I keep this rolling easily.
I have one last question for you because I don't want to take too much of your time. When the tour got announced, I mean, it's a heavy hitter of, you mentioned the word before, legacy bands like Sacred Reich, Violence, you guys, Hyrax. And then there's a band in there that's playing tonight called Void.
Right.
A bunch of young dudes.
Right.
Did you know that band before? Have they impressed you on this tour? Because they're very throwback. They look like they've been in a time capsule, and somebody just opened that time capsule.
Now it's funny, like we had our friend Michael Alago out to the show in New York City, and just Google Michael Alago. You'll see who that man is. But he was like, and that band they look like they're from the '80s. And we're like, Hyrax? Hyrax is from the '80s. Like, no, I don't think that was their name. And we were like, were they a bunch of young kids? Yeah, those guys, the kid, Void, yeah, that was it. They look like they're from the '80s, and so definite throwback. I will freely admit I was unaware of them before this tour got announced, and so we've become really good friends with it. They're our little brothers now, and we definitely like taking them under our wing, sort of thing. And they're a killer band. Check out Void. They're kicking ass out there, and they're doing their thing. They're keeping the thrash elements alive, and that's one thing I've always noticed. Thrash is such a, like even a decade ago, when 15 years ago, when the younger versions of the thrash bands were coming out, the younger permutations of them, the municipal waste and toxic holocausts and Warbringers and Fueled by Fire and Merciless Deaths and all those kind of guys. That was a decade and a half ago. There's still a young element of thrashers, the battle jackets, the patches,
I think it's a timeless genre.
It is, because it's great. Great music will stick around. A fad is a fad. That's when thrash metal was, I am OG thrash metaler. I am from ground zero, early days of day two of thrash metal. Day one of thrash metal kind of thing. Los Angeles in 1982. Like that sort of thing. And it was always the middle finger to all the established music that was out at the time, and it always is. And that's the thing about, fad music, like, even when, hair metal or whatever you want to call it, cock rock or whatever, when that had its demise in the 90s, and a lot of the metal was under, was shifting back to the underground. We're all a bunch of underground dwellers, so we just shifted back to the underground. That's where a lot of that kind of music kind of faded away. Thrash, there was always elements of thrash metal in everything that was coming out in the 90s, when you had your grunge was coming out. I fully think grunge was absolutely influenced by thrash metal. I think nu metal was influenced by all the breakdown parts of thrash metal bands, and that's what I feel. The hardcore influenced by that, and metal very influenced by hard. Cro-Mags are a big influence on metal bands, so that kind of thing. All the early Agnostic Front and stuff like that. But God, I'm going off on a tangent. But that's just bottom line. Thrash metal is a killer style of music. It's great. That's why it'll always be timeless. There's always going to be somebody going, this is killer. I'm 13 years old. I'm discovering music and metal and rock and whatever. I'm discovering music for the first time, gravitating towards thrash metal. There are worse ways to go, I tell you. So
I couldn't agree with you more. I've been listening to it since I was 10.
Right.
So I'm 47 now, so I've been listening to it for a very long time, and I've been listening to your music for a very long time. So
excellent.
First of all, thank you very much for taking the time today. Have a killer tour and have a killer show. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the show tonight. And everybody come out and check it out, man. The Extinction Level Event Tour coming to your town. We only got, we're halfway through the tour now, but you do not want to be the person getting the call the next morning going, where were you? You weren't at the show. Are you kidding me? You don't want to be that person, because this is a night of intense metal. Definitely being brought to you by Dark Angel. Absolutely.